The U.S. labor market is heating back up. After a month of ramped up vaccinations and warmer weather, employers added more than 900,000 jobs in March. This could be just the start of a blockbuster 2021. But even as companies show signs of being in the early stages of recovery, some jobs may never return. Layoffs have been especially high in industries that can be automated, which increases the risk that those jobs will become permanently obsolete. So where will these laid-off individuals turn for work? And how are leaders in the business world preparing for our new normal? Here to discuss is Taylor Stockton. He's the Chief Operating Officer of FutureFit AI. Now, the company uses data and artificial intelligence to help workers with career transitions. Taylor, thank you for being here. I want to start with the pace of technology, which is accelerating exponentially and changing constantly. So what are employers doing to train their employees who they may eventually have to lay off due to all these changes?
Yeah, thanks, Madison. It's great to be here. What employers are realizing is that even though we're hopefully almost on the other side of this pandemic, as you said, layoffs aren't going away. And in fact, they're likely only going to accelerate because 85% of employers have actually accelerated automation and digital transformation during the pandemic, which is likely to lead to increased displacement of employees in the coming years. And so in combination with that and being in the age of Glassdoor and Twitter, where the transparency and public scrutiny of the negative impact that layoffs have is only going to increase as well. So many Fortune 500 companies are turning to FutureFit AI to help them reimagine layoffs by making sure employees have a soft landing into their next role, by providing them with our AI platform that acts as a GPS for their career and make sure they have access to the training and reskilling that they need to land their next job successfully.
So you, ironically a little bit, use machine learning in your efforts to combat the effects of automation on the job market. So it's a very meta situation here. Can you tell me just a little bit more about how your platform works?
Yeah, absolutely. And so data and machine learning algorithms are at the core of what we do at FutureFit AI that really allow us to be this GPS for your career. So we've gone through a multi-year long exercise of creating one of the most comprehensive data sets around work and skills. So, for example, part of that data is analysis of hundreds of millions of successful career transitions that people have made, such that for any given individual, we can identify what are the possible careers that an employee could likely pursue based on what we've seen in the past, and what set of learning programs or training programs might be most likely to get them from point A to point B.
So what is the likelihood of employees who have been laid off getting a role after this training? What's the likelihood? I'm trying to suss out the kind of ROI on the training.
Right. I mean, on the employee side, there's no out-of-pocket cost to them. So ROI for them is equipping themselves with new skills, new job prospects. We place over 90% of the individuals we support, but it's not just the placement itself, it's the quality of the placement. It's how satisfied is the employee, how supported did they feel, and what marginal change in their salary did they receive. On the employer side, from an ROI perspective, firstly, it's important to note that the vast majority of Fortune 500s already have budget allocated to what is called outplacement. And so it's really just a reallocation of existing budget that exists. But from a business case perspective, we see our partners think about it in three ways. One is brand perception, right? Reducing the risk of negative PR. Two is litigation risk, so reducing risk and cost that can result from layoffs. But then three is the ongoing employee attraction and retention, right? Because think about if you were a prospective employee of a company and are seeing that the company is cutting 5% of its workforce every year and treating their employees poorly on the way out the door. That's likely not a company you're going to want to work for.
So Taylor, that's really interesting to me because it sounds like you own the idea that this is a little bit about good optics for the company. Am I right?
That's right.
So how do you kind of navigate that in your work and kind of taking ownership of that?
I mean, ultimately, it's something that, we believe that, increasingly as these layoffs happen, this is going to be something that becomes table stakes for companies within the next 12 to 18 months. Any Fortune 500 company who isn't supporting their laid off employees are going to suffer from the consequences of brand perception. And, speaking to the last segment of the show that you were talking about, I mean, this is really a part of a broader question of what standard do we as a society hold corporations to, right? We've seen societal pressure of corporations on climate change, on racial injustice, and how companies treat their employees on the way out the door is simply another stone that's in the process of being overturned and holding employers accountable.
Right, and you mentioned kind of the importance of these issues of equity and inclusion. So I wonder what you're doing with your AI to make sure that it is inclusive and lacking in some of the biases that we see in other forms of technology.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question, and equity is at the core of our mission at FutureFit AI, especially because when you look at the profiles of individuals impacted by layoffs, women and people of color are oftentimes disproportionately impacted. And so at FutureFit AI, we have specifically designed our algorithms such that they do not perpetuate systematic barriers or biases that can impact minority communities in the labor market. So rather than recommending career paths based off what people from similar backgrounds have done before, we recommend careers based on a person's underlying skills and ultimately what potential we believe they have.
Taylor Stockton, Chief Operating Officer of FutureFit AI, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.